My favorite mantra. Everything is always working out for me. Everything is always working out for me. Everything always works out for me. You can absolutely adopt the same mindset, the same mantra, the same belief, the same reality. Everything always works out for me.
Welcome to the High Vibe Life podcast, where we are obsessed with all things manifestation, neuroscience, personal growth, and quite simply, living a life beyond our wildest dreams. I'm Moira Casaba, author, speaker, podcaster, manifestation, and mindset master. Since getting sober 25 years ago, I've helped tens of thousands of women break through and achieve massive levels of wealth, joy, and freedom. Now it's your turn. Let's dig in.
Welcome back to the podcast, you guys. I am thrilled to be here with you today. I'm thrilled to share with you my favorite mantra. Okay, you ready for it? Everything is always working out for me. Everything is always working out for me. Everything always works out for me. Do you hear the different tones of like really getting it into your subconscious? Everything always works out for me. This is literally what everyone in my life knows about me, always kind of makes fun of me for, but also I feel like there might be a little envy. Not that I ever want anybody to be envious, but I'm like, guys, you can have this too. Like, it's not just for me. You can absolutely adopt the same mindset, the same mantra, the same belief, the same reality. Everything always works out for me. And so I have a million examples of this that I could share with you because it really is the reality of just the way that I live my life. But why I want to share this with you today is I was working with my mastermind group, this phenomenal group of women, and one of them was having a really, really hard morning the other day, just like falling apart, left a voice text on our message thread and was really, really struggling. And gosh, I love these women like they are my family. And the last thing I ever want for them is to struggle. And so it's like, what do I do in this situation? How do I pivot? How do I shift? And so normally, one of the things I always say, and you guys have heard me say this a million times, is, well, in situations where there's angst or frustration or anger, the best thing you can do is ask yourself, how is this a gift? But I understand that sometimes you are in such a state of rage and anger and like at your wits' end, near tears. I can get there too. To ask yourself, how is this a gift, is too big of a stretch. It's too big of a stretch, right? And so we've got to find kind of that bridge to that place where we can start to ask ourselves that bigger question. And for me, it's like, okay, this is working out for me. This is working out for me. It's just looking for the littlest things that this is working out, this is working out. And you start to build on that energy, that frequency, right? That vibration. And I want to give you an example of how this really does show up. And this is literally the last 24 hours of my life. And the reason that I was really living it is because I was also in the middle of kind of teaching it. And so it was so conscious to me, right? It was so right there at the forefront of my mind. And when things are pulled to the forefront of your mind, which is why we do mantras, you start to really just live into them. Okay. So, and also if you're watching on YouTube, will you guys put in the comments your favorite mantra or just even a yes if the mantra thing like resonates with you? If you're like, yeah, I do this. I would love to know if you're already doing this. But the other night, I was actually having a very frustrating night. Some things were not working out for me tech-wise. And I was kind of near tears simply because I was trying to do something for someone else. And I think that's the only time that I actually have kind of a hot button is like if I'm trying to do something for someone else and it's so important and it's not working, I was really tearful. And all of a sudden I got in the car and I was like, I got to shift out of this, right? Like I get to do this right now. I get to go to dinner. I get to pick up one of my girlfriends. Everything's going to be okay. Like it's not the end of the world. If I don't get to give this to her tonight, I can just give it to her tomorrow. Like it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out. It's all going to work out. And so I was able to shift from rage and tears by the thoughts that were playing in my head that I control, that you control your thoughts, I was able to quickly shift. I mean, it really was astonishing that I was able to shift that quickly from rage and tears to like, it's all going to be fine. And, going back to so many things I've taught you guys before is like, you just have to remember, and I'm thinking about retitling my book, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, because it is your thoughts that dictate everything, right? That's kind of what's underneath all of it. And so just remember that when you're like, but this isn't happening, and you're just negative, and you're just hyper focused, and your brain is like looking for proof to like stack on top of each other why this isn't going to work. You have to change your thoughts, right? That's why mantras work, because your thoughts create your feelings create your action creates your life. And so what we're doing is grabbing a hold of the thoughts and like stopping the negative thoughts in their tracks, inserting some type of mantra. And that's where the shift comes in. So I'm driving downtown and I've shifted my energy. I mean, I left my house in a rage, y'all. Like my kids were like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I've ever seen my mom like that. Like that's how bad it was. By the time I got downtown, everything was fine. And so we go into this restaurant that has no parking. We go to this restaurant that has no parking. Downtown Charleston, the streets are teeny, tiny, super narrow, one-way streets everywhere. It's like the hardest place in the world to find parking. No parking garages anywhere in like the upper part of our downtown district. And so I pull up, find the restaurant, and my girlfriend who I'd picked up goes, it's right there. And I was like, can I park right here? Literally, like in front of the restaurant, like within 2 to 3 feet of the table that's sitting out on the sidewalk. And I'm like, I can't park right there, can I? Like, this must not be a parking space. It must be a loading zone. It must be. And she's like, I think you can park there. And I'm like, really? Like, I'm going to park right here. Like, I felt like I was parking on the sidewalk, touching the restaurant. And I don't think anything of it, though. I'm like, oh my gosh, great. Because I'm not attached to this concept of everything working out with me. It's just what I believe. It's how I operate. It's how I show up in the world. And so I whip it around and pull into the parking space, walk into the restaurant, whatever. One of our girlfriends walks in, no joke, 20 minutes late. She's laughing because she's like, Moira. I'm like, what? After we hug and, all the things. She's like, I literally had to park like 3 miles away in the shadiest like part of town, fearing for my life. And she's like, and I walk into the restaurant and your car is literally sitting in the sidewalk right out front. And I just laughed. Everybody laughed. They were like, that's because everything always works out for her. So here's how this starts to build when you kind of massage the idea of, yep, everything works out for me. And I'm massaging it, not intentionally, but they're telling the story, right? So I'm laughing about it. It's kind of just becoming a bigger story. It's becoming a bigger focus. Where energy goes, where focus goes, energy flows, right? It gets bigger. And so what is crazy is I'm trying to think about the turn. Oh, this was yesterday. So this was the next day. I had pulled my back out. My neck was like completely wrecked. I hadn't worked out in 2 days. I had gotten a massage the couple days before that when I pulled my back out. And yesterday it was starting to like almost spasm. And I'm getting through my work day and I'm looking at the clock. And because everything works out for me, I had a podcast cancel. I was supposed to be interviewed on a podcast. There was some state of emergency in California. And so they canceled. And I was like, kind of laughed. I was like, leaves me the perfect amount of time to go get a massage. And we go to this place that's like a reflexology place. You don't really need an appointment. Sometimes you should call if it's like a weekend or something. And I thought to myself a couple times, I'm like, I should call to see if they can get me in. But it's literally 2:30 on a weekday. Like, and I'm busy. I was just kind of busy. I was in, whatever work mode. And I finally, because I have perfect timing, because this podcast canceled, before I leave my house and pick up my daughter, I hop in the car and I pick up the phone on my way to like pop into the reflexology place on the way to get my daughter. And they're like, we're booked, Moira. And I was like, you're booked? I was like, are you serious? And I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm just talking to them. I was like, and again, most people would be like, a lot of people would go negative, right? Irritation, frustration. They wouldn't be nice to the person on the other end of the phone. That doesn't get you anywhere in this universe. And so I was just like, oh, I was like, okay, can I do 20 minutes? Like, I'll take whatever you have, like my back, and they had seen me a couple days before. They're like, no, we're totally booked. I was like, man, I could have been frustrated. I could have literally been upset because I was like, well, now what am I going to do? I have this hour in between. I'm already in the car. And I was like, you know what? It's all going to work out for me because it always works out for me. So I turn on some Christmas music. I jam out as I'm driving over the bridge, leaving the island. And I'm like, I'm just going to show up. So 10 minutes later, I pull in to the massage place. I walk in kind of with a smile on my face because the guy looks at me like, dude, I just told you we were booked. And he's not frustrated. He kind of looked at me like with a smile. He's like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I thought I would just chance it. Did somebody cancel? What do you know? I don't even know if actually someone canceled. We never even got that far in the conversation. He just said in, a different language, they were talking to each other. And finally he said, we can do 20 minutes. And I said, okay, I'll take whatever you can give me. I'm like, like in such a joyful, like just happy place. So I sit down, they work on my shoulder, they work on my neck. I am so freaking happy. And I get up and I walk out and my phone rings and it's my mom, who is in assisted living, who never calls me, who, if she says she is having a bad day, like we need to call in medical help usually. Like, and that's not an exaggeration at all. Like when she's having a bad day, she says she's having a good day. If she says she's having a bad day, it's usually life-threatening. And she calls me and says, hey, I'm having a really bad day. And I don't know when you can come over, but I need you to do X, Y, and Z. Well, I said, perfect timing, Mom. Because that massage was only 20 minutes. I was picking up my daughter from her training session, which is across the street from my mom's assisted living. I was just going to go sit in the parking lot and get some emails done. And I said, hey, I've got like 10 or 15 minutes, which was plenty of time to do what I needed to do. But the fact that I was driving over there, literally pulled right in. I mean, on the phone with my mom, who thinks, I don't know when you can get over here. I said, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Everything works out. So I pull in. I am able to take care of my mom. And I literally leave her, give her a kiss and a hug, get in my car, pull across the street, and my daughter's walking out the door. Everything always works out for me. Living in the energy and the frequency and the belief and really the flow of how I believe we're all meant to live. And it really comes down to the energy that you're putting out there. So again, I don't tell you all of those things to go look at how fabulous my life is because I have stuff coming at me all the time, but you have the power to choose how you respond, right? There's a pause, we all know, between stimulus and response. That's your freedom. That's where you control the game. That's where you control how you respond, and how you respond and what you believe and what you think determines everything, absolutely everything. So take my favorite mantra into your life, adopt it as your own, say it over and over and over again until you come to a space and a place of believing. Thanks so much for joining today, you guys. We will see you next week on the podcast.